Client load balancing spreads the wireless clients across access points to make best use of the wireless network and especially to make best use of the RF spectrum. On average, a load balance network is going to provide best overall throughput and best quality of service to the wireless clients. Client load balancing is based on the idea of adjacent access points. Adjacent access points are those that are close enough that if a wireless client requests access on one of them at a reasonable signal strength, it could just as well support a link on any of the adjacent access points. Now, this feature is implemented both in the zone director and the access point. The zone director's role is that it controls this feature. The zone director determines the adjacent access points based on signal strength measured between the APs during their background scans. The zone director then manages the wireless client load by sending client limits to each AP that dynamically vary the limit value in this message so that the balance of clients between APs stays roughly the same. Now, the AP's role in this, it enforces the limits, the client limits, by withholding probe responses and authentication responses from the client, encouraging it to go to another access point. Now, this is the same mechanism used in band steering, actually, but whereas in band steering, we're encouraging the client to not connect on one band, but to go to the other band on the same AP. In this case, in client load balancing, we're encouraging the client to go to a different AP. Finally, there's one important point about the limits that we send. These are not hard limits, they're soft limits, in that if the access point gets a request from a client that is, number one, very persistent, getting it over and over again, the access point is allowed to let that client in. If the access point gets a request from a client with a very weak signal strength, again, the AP is allowed and in fact required to let the client in so that that client always has some place to go. The Ruckus infrastructure model lends itself very well to client load balancing. The zone director is a central place where all of the client counts at each AP and the active WLANs are well known. Keep in mind that when we implement client load balancing, we would have a client, we would discourage a client from going to one AP in favor of another AP if not only that other AP had fewer clients, but also it must support the same WLAN that was requested by the client. For instance, in a lobby, there might be a guest WLAN, and there might be adjacent access points, but they may not support the guest WLAN. So in the case where that access point perhaps has more clients than the adjacent access points, we don't want to discourage the client from using the lobby access point because it has nowhere else to go on the same WLAN. So the point being that all of this information, client counts, active WLANs, and a few others that I haven't mentioned, are available in one central place in the zone director, which makes this feature very feasible to implement.